Say hi. Whoa. Oh. I read for 100 days straight, or 116 as of the day that I'm recording, and it was all accidental. It all started out with Storygraph's January challenge, where you're supposed to read at least one page a day for the whole of January, which I succeeded, and I managed to read 6 books during the month of January, so I thought, why not continue and see how far I can get. And then as the days kept going, my streak got higher and I didn't want to stop. And now I've passed the 100-day mark and I thought I would tell you what I've learned. Now, I'm a bit excessive with my reading tracking. I track on Goodreads, I track on Storygraph, and I also started this year tracking on Fable. So it was very easy for me to keep track of how many days I have been reading. And like I said, it was all accidental, but now I've really got this motivation to keep going. And while having a really high number on your reading streak is really nice to see, there have been both pros and cons to reading every single day. But first, let's go through the pros. The first one being very obvious. By reading every single day, you just tend to read a lot more. You read a lot more books, and that's just a really nice thing that I've enjoyed, and I've been very consistent with my reading compared to previous years. Second, reading every day has forced me to branch out into more genres, or at least made me jump around genres a lot more than I have previously, just because if I'm reading every single day, I don't want each book to be too similar that it puts me into a slump. So that means if I've read a romance, then I'll jump to a fantasy or a literary fiction or sci-fi, just so that I don't get sick of reading, because that would really put a hinder to reading every single day. And while that's sometimes difficult trying to figure out my next read, it also makes it really enjoyable for me to experience so many different authors and so many different genres, one after the other. And I don't find myself getting sick of a certain type of book very quickly. Another pro is that reading every single day creates this nice habit. It creates a routine very quickly for you, and it's just really nice to have something to look forward to each day. I know that one task that I have to do that day is read, and it's a nice task to do. Granted, I should probably do this with drinking water, but that's not as fun as picking up a book. Also, by picking up a book, it means that I am guaranteed to spend time away from a screen. I'm not looking at my phone for a certain amount of time or watching TV. I know that once I start reading that day, I can put my phone aside and it just lets me decompress from social media or just from finding the next video to watch on YouTube or what TV show to watch. It's nice to just have a break from all of that, and it forces me to do that at least for a little amount of time each day. Reading every day also makes me feel like I've been productive every single day. Just like if you make your bed every single day, that's one little productive thing that you do. And while it may not be a big thing, it does make you feel good. So picking up a book, and even if it's reading 1 page or 100 pages or 50 pages, it means that I've been productive in some way, or I've at least made progress with a book that I'm enjoying or reading at that time. And it just leaves me feeling good at the end. And lastly, sometimes I do pick up a book and I just read 1 page, and sometimes I'll pick up a book thinking I'm just going to read 1 page, and I end up reading 20, 30 pages. I've then made so much progress that I wouldn't have made if I didn't pick up a book that day. And so by forcing myself to read at least a little bit every single day, I also allow myself to have that chance of getting hooked into the book that I'm reading and just reading a lot more than I thought I would have. So the pros are mostly around making progress or just routine-like advantages, as you would think. Aside from the screen time, I do think that is a great plus to reading every single day, that it does force me to put my phone down, or sometimes I'll listen to an audiobook while I'm doing chores, and that just feels a lot better than me just doom scrolling. Granted, I still do that and then like rush a page or two, but it feels nice to know that I'm cutting down my screen time. But there are some cons to reading every single day. The first being, if you've had a really busy day, or if you've been out with friends, or you've been tired, and then you see the time and you're getting closer to the end of the day, you then have to pick up a book really quickly to read a page or two. And then it kind of forces you to feel a certain way about reading. Like you have to read rather than you want to read. And that's not the best way to view reading, because reading should be a hobby that you're enjoying. Granted, that's only happened a handful of times with me where, I've been out with friends and then I've looked at the time and realized, I'm about to go to bed, but I haven't read a page, so I quickly read a page. It could be difficult if that were to happen most of the time rather than some one-offs here and there. Another con is if you're going through a reading slump, forcing yourself to read really isn't going to help. If you're lucky, forcing yourself to read will then push you out of that slump. That's also a possibility. But I have encountered a couple times where I've not really been into the book, or I've thought that I'm about to enter a slump, and by reading this book, by forcing myself to read this book, I've come away perhaps not liking the book as much as I would have if I had read it at a different time. And so I come away viewing that book differently than maybe it should have been. But if you're in a slump, you're just gonna end up feeling a bit negative about the book anyway. So it's a difficult one, because if it wasn't that book, it might have been another book. But that's a high possibility, and I have come across a couple books now throughout my 100 days that upon reflection, I could have seen myself enjoying more if I had read it at a different time. And speaking of book slumps, reading every single day definitely can put you into a slump, or at least you can feel yourself slowly moving into a slump. I have only one instant where I felt like I could have been entering the world of reading slump. It was very difficult for me to read every single day during that period, and it was mostly just 1 page a day, 3 pages, 5 pages, 20 pages. And when I did read 20 pages, it felt like such a slug to get through. And I ended up for that book just listening to the audiobook to help me get through it. Granted, the book also didn't help that I had picked up, and I'm also the type to not want to DNF unless I really hate the book. So that's a bit on me. But if I didn't have access to the audiobook, I could have really seen myself feeling like reading was a chore after that book. Luckily enough, the next book I read after that was a higher rating and I enjoyed a lot more. It was very difficult, and so reading every single day definitely could put you in a slump, especially if you have a few bad books in a row. And lastly, the thing that's bothered me the most about reading every single day is that when you read a really good book that you absolutely love, that you give 5 stars to, or perhaps 6 stars to, it doesn't give you the time to just sit with the book and just enjoy what you read and let yourself stay in that world for a couple of days. Because before, whenever I've read a 5-star book, or I've just read a book that will leave me thinking about it for days afterwards, I don't want to start another book straight away. I want to leave my mind where that book is. And by reading every single day, you can't do that. Most of the time, when I've finished a 5-star read, I won't start my next book until the next day. Even if I finish the book at, let's say, 10 a.m., I will not read for the rest of the day, because that is my time to sit with the book. But let's say I've finished a 5-star read at 11 p.m. By the time that I wake up the next day, I need to start another book. And I just miss being able to enjoy a book and sit with it and not force myself to pick up another book straight away. It also gets really difficult to find your next book really quickly after a 5-star. I feel like if you don't know what you're going to read after a fantastic book, if you didn't have something in mind, it can be, at least for me, really difficult to decide on your next pick. That being said, personally I find the pros outweigh the cons, and it's just crazy how much implementing one new habit into my life has changed so much of my routine and so much of my day. And I've really enjoyed just having the time set aside each day, whether it's first thing that I read, which for me most of the time it isn't, but when I get home from work I'll read a little bit, or if it'll be last thing in the day in bed I'll read a chapter or two and then go to sleep. It's just such a nice thing to have each day, something to look forward to, and I'm hoping to keep it going possibly for the rest of the year. Fingers crossed I can keep it up. Reading for 100 days straight has shown me that the pros are definitely worth it. As for the books that I've managed to read so far in 100 days, I have set my goal, my reading goal for this year, to 35 books. I have currently read 18 books. As of the end of April last year, I had only read 5 books. If you're interested in the 18 books that I've read so far, I'll put them up on the screen with my rating. Thank you for watching. If you liked, please like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what your reading goals are. Let me know if you see the point in reading every single day. And I shall see you next time. Bye.